Tonight, Trump fires James Comey, the brutal legacy of Boko Haram, and white-hot hate in a small town.
You filthy piece of trash.
The Trump administration will provide more weapons to Kurdish YPG fighters in northern Syria in a push to defeat the Islamic State. That's despite the fact that Turkey, a key U.S. ally in the region, says the YPG is part of the PKK, a Kurdish group widely considered a terrorist organization.
We're keenly aware of the security concerns of our coalition partners in Turkey. We want to reassure the people and the government of Turkey that the U.S. is committed to preventing additional security risks and protecting our NATO ally.
Newly released phone calls show that Italian authorities ignored multiple calls for help from a sinking boat filled with refugees in 2013.
We are dying, please. Okay, we are dying. Yes, you are.
5 hours after the initial call, the boat capsized and dozens of people drowned. Protesters clashed with police in Chile during a student-led march for education reform. Thousands of demonstrators called for forgiveness on student loans owed to the government. The protest is the latest in a years-long movement to demand free and quality public education. Emergency responders at the Hanford nuclear site in Washington state are trying to figure out what caused a portion of a storage tunnel for radioactive waste to suddenly collapse. The government has been cleaning up radioactive materials at Hanford since 1989. After plutonium production ended there in 1980.
All personnel in the immediate area have been accounted for, they are safe, and there's been no evidence of a radiological release.
At 6 p.m. D.C. time on Tuesday, President Trump announced that he'd fired FBI Director James Comey and appointed his deputy, Andrew McCabe, to serve as interim director. It's an extraordinary step, even for an embattled president. Only one other time since the FBI's founding in 1908 has a president removed the agency's director from office. Washington Bureau Chief Shauna Thomas has more.
A golden rule of politics is that when a scandal breaks, you try to minimize it. You try to stamp out the fire. By firing James Comey, Trump took a slow burn and threw napalm on it. This could backfire in 3 big ways. There's going to be a huge backlash at the FBI. Comey was extremely popular for having defended the agency through the minefield that was the 2016 election. In particular, for the way he pushed back against Trump's tweeted accusation that Obama had wiretapped Trump Tower, an act that couldn't have happened, even theoretically, without the FBI's complicity. Add that to Trump's previous questioning of the FBI's intelligence about Russian meddling, and you have an agency already furious at the president. Firing Comey can only make it worse. Second, Comey may be more dangerous to Trump outside of the FBI than in it. The most likely scenario is that Comey won't say much. The Russia investigation is classified, and Comey is famous for sticking to the rules. But those loyal to Comey may have new motivation to open up. And for an administration that hates leaks and is already plagued by them, it could let loose a torrent. Finally, Comey's firing also kicks off inescapable comparisons to Richard Nixon, who famously fired Watergate Special Prosecutor Archibald Cox in 1973 in what's been known as the Saturday Night Massacre. Cox was then in the middle of his investigation into Watergate, just as Comey was in the midst of an investigation into the Trump administration's ties to Russia. 2 Nixon aides resigned rather than fired Cox, and the entire episode contributed to the perception that Nixon was guilty of something. Senator Bob Casey has already written that this move is Nixonian and called for a special counsel to be appointed. Now, that's something Democrats have been agitating for, and up until now, it was easy to dismiss that call as partisan politics. But this has given more credibility to the need for one.
The United Kingdom is now just 4 weeks away from its general election. And today, Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn officially launched his campaign. Tellingly, though, he also vowed that he'd stay on as leader even if his party gets wiped out by Theresa May's Tories, which is exactly what polls show is about to happen. Labour, once a dominant force in British politics, is now in the end stages of a total collapse that's been decades in the making. Aditya Chakraborty reports.
This is an endangered species, a safe Labour MP.
Labour is a party that unites and builds. What have the Tories ever built?
Next month, Stephen Kinnock is almost guaranteed to be voted back into Parliament. But his colleagues face wipeout. South Wales is Labour, like Detroit is Democrat. Industrial, unionised, working class. Around here, you didn't used to count the Labour vote, you just weighed it.
Of course, we have the Westminster election.
Yet Wales may now go Tory, for the first time in almost a century. And that's mad, isn't it? Wales actually going towards Tories?
It is very worrying. And I think we've got to find our way back. And whatever happens on the 8th of June, on the 9th of June, we've got to have a serious conversation about the future of the party. But for the time being, we've got to just fight for every single vote.
Polls can get it wrong, of course. But their predictions are stark. Not just for the politicians, but for democracy itself. Britain's two-party system depends on a strong opposition. A Labour collapse across the UK will create a one-party state, run by Theresa May's Tories. We're looking at not just an election victory for the Conservatives, you're talking about a bloodbath. Theresa May will be in charge of rewriting the economic constitution of Britain with Brexit. What does a one-party state mean for British politics?
Well, it means potentially they'll use Brexit as an excuse to make a bonfire of workers' rights, of environmental standards, of consumer protection, of all of the things that actually makes us a civilised country.
So why would the Welsh vote for any of that? To see why, go next door to Bridgend, a Labour constituency almost from day one, now so likely to turn Tory that Theresa May popped by for a pre-victory lap.
But what I see around the country is a real unity of purpose, of people urging us to get on with the job of Brexit and make a success of it.
But one thing that's not going on is a lot of local Conservative campaigning. This election isn't being won by the Tories, it's being lost by Labour.
I want the people to change. I want the politicians and the local councils to change their attitudes and change their ways and actually become entrenched with the community and to work with the community and be visible, which they aren't at the moment.
This thing about Labour politicians, Tony Blair or Gordon Brown, Ed Miliband, any of these people, do you think Jeremy Corbyn, do they represent you?
Every person who you just mentioned, and they couldn't be further from what I am, really. They don't represent me. I don't feel any kind of kinship with these people.
Lots of people don't feel much kinship with Jeremy Corbyn, his left-wing credentials and bumbling manner.
Sorry, somebody tried to kick me? I beg your pardon.
They include many of his own MPs who've tried not once but twice to get rid of him. But the rot goes much wider and deeper than one man. Wales has been Labour for so long that its people now blame the party for its economic decline, of which there's plenty of evidence. Shops are boarded up. Factories are laying off workers or have shut down. In the hills above, the mines, once employing tens of thousands, are now museum pieces. What's replaced those careers is largely low-paid temporary jobs, or nothing at all. That means the decline of trade unions and of an entire political culture. Just look at what's happened to this Labour social club. You can tell versions of this story for the centre-left across Britain and Europe. Thatcher shut the mines and savaged the industrial communities, but Blair basically accepted Thatcherism and took voters for granted in heartlands like South Wales. So in this election, a whole coop of chickens is coming home to roost. In Westminster, the headlines are all about Labour's civil war, while out here, voters have tuned out politics altogether.
We've had a number of years where, in this area, where things have been getting gradually worse and Labour have been in charge here. So I want to see something different happening, I guess.
I keep hearing, well, Labour haven't done very much for us here. Can you see that argument?
To be quite honest, I'd agree that the people that we've got in this area, in Labour, need a good kick at the jacksie, to be quite honest. They're complacent.
He sees complacency, but the mood among senior Labour sources I've spoken to over the past few weeks is somewhere between grim and panic. This election marks a milestone in the disintegration of a party that's over 110 years old. And that could reshape British politics and its society, not just for years, but generations.
Nigerian authorities identified the 82 Chibok girls who were freed by the terrorist group Boko Haram this Saturday after 3 years of captivity. But 113 of the 276 girls in that group remain in Boko Haram's hands. And Amnesty International has estimated that the total number of women and children held by the militants is close to 2,000. Other aid groups think it could be even more. Vice News went to Boko Haram's stronghold of Borno State in northern Nigeria to speak with Maimuna Sala, a 22-year-old woman who recently escaped from the militants after being held captive for more than 5 years.
Ni da makaman asacen din ina yin karatun Islamiyya ne nake yi. Inda guri na kawai in ga na zama malamar Islamiyya.
Maimuna says she was 17 years old when she was kidnapped by Boko Haram fighters. She was taken on the streets of Maiduguri while on her way to see her brother.
Suka min aure a wajensu. Aure miji yau ya dake ni gobe ya zage ni akan kullun ina cewa ni sai na gudu gidanmu.
She was raped and married off to 3 different fighters, each of whom died in battle. During her captivity, she had 3 children and finally managed to escape after 5 years.
Kawai ni na ce, gwara in gudu ko a hanya masu kashe ni da dai in zanna sake aura mun wani. Daga wannan ya tafi ya bar ni da 'ya'ya, wannan ya tafi ya bar ni da 'ya'ya, ni gwara in tafi. In ya so a hanya in suka gani su kashe ni ma haka ne na samu na fita.
Maimuna fled with her 3 kids and another woman. During her escape, her newborn daughter fell seriously ill.
Kwanan mu 5 muna tafiya a jeji da goyon yarinya ta din jinjira wadda na haifa din. To ishi ruwa ne ko me ban sani ba mu samu ruwa ba sai da irin ruwa na kasan nan wanda ya kwanta shi za mu iba mu sha. Ya muka zanna a gindin bishiya. Sai naga kaman za ta rasu tana ta miƙa. Sai na je na nemo ruwa na aje sauran yaran. Sai na wawwatsa mata. Sai naga alamunta dai ta miƙe ba ta da rai.
Maimuna and her 2 surviving children have been living in a host community on the outskirts of Maiduguri. But because of the stigma former captives face, their ordeal is far from over.
Akan sabida haka din an ƙi a nema mu. Sabida nan din ana yawan zagin yara na. Ana zagin su ana ce musu su yaran Boko Haram ne. Wani lokacin abin da yake faruwa da ni a can ma, in na zauna na tuna na can sai na ga nan din na fi rashin jin daɗi ma akan can din.
While everyone has been talking about Obamacare and the American Health Care Act, something else has been happening in the medical sector. Hospitals have been getting a lot bigger and a lot less competitive. Since 2007, there have been almost 800 hospital mergers in the United States. Martin Gaynor, a professor of economics and health policy at Carnegie Mellon, thinks it's something people should be paying a little more attention to.
When you get a market dominated by one large firm, you don't have to be an economist, let alone a rocket scientist, to figure out what's going to happen. What is that firm going to do? Well, of course, they're going to raise their prices. There have been a lot of studies of competition in hospital markets in the United States. And one thing we know from this is if 2 hospital systems that are close competitors merge, prices go up by a lot. In some markets, prices went up by 20%, 40%, even more than 50%.
The problem is that many close competitors are merging. Just last week, HCA, one of the largest for-profit hospital groups in the country, bought 3 hospitals in Houston from Tenet, another big hospital chain. The reason? HCA controls the market in Houston, and Tenet doesn't. And it's basically what's happening all over the country. Hospital groups are consolidating power in markets they control, so they have more leverage when negotiating prices with insurance companies. That's led to a reality in which cities like Boston, Pittsburgh, and San Francisco are dominated by one large hospital group. In fact, more than 90% of metro areas are now what antitrust agencies call highly concentrated. And that's something consumers pay for, even if they get insurance through their employer.
If employers' costs for healthcare go up, workers end up paying for that. And they pay for these higher healthcare costs either in terms of pay increases they don't get, reduced generosity of healthcare benefits, or paying a bigger share of the health insurance premium.
In most discussions about healthcare costs, the villains tend to be big insurers and drug companies. But hospitals play a major role in driving up prices. They make money by providing services, and it's in their best interest to charge more for those services. That's why consolidating to gain leverage over insurers makes sense for hospitals. It's also why the trend isn't going to stop unless the government steps in to block these deals. And that's something that seems pretty unlikely under the current administration.
Well, hi there, Tanya. I wanted to let you know that I find what you did to Sherry Spencer to be vile and disgusting, you rank bitch.
Fuck off, Jill. You filthy piece of trash. You are threatening an old lady.
This is Trump's America now.
This beautiful little ski town seems like an unlikely target for an invasion of white supremacists.
It's a great town. The people that come here are the people that love outdoor activities. They are incredibly hardy.
Whitefish is a really healthy town of mind, body, and soul.
But this town happens to be home to Richard Spencer, who became America's most famous white nationalist after he neatly encapsulated fears about the Trump administration in one simple gesture.
Hail Trump! Hail our people! Hail victory!
When Richard Spencer stood up in front of the world and did a Nazi salute in Washington, D.C., it changed everything in Whitefish.
Activists noticed Spencer had registered his nonprofit at his mom's property in town. Tanya Gersh, a realtor, had a conversation with Spencer's mom, Sherry Spencer.
Sherry Spencer called me, and Sherry said, Tanya, what do? I don't believe in the ideologies of my son. And I said, Sherry, if this were my son, I would sell the building and I would donate some money to a human rights cause. And she said, you're right, Tanya, that's what I should do. Will you help me?
Later, Sherry said Tanya pressured her to sell against her will. She posted an email from Tanya in which she asked Sherry to make a public statement against her son and donate proceeds to a charity she'd worked with. That was catnip for Andrew Anglin, who runs a neo-Nazi site, because Tanya is Jewish.
Do you know no one has ever even told me a Jewish joke in all my life? Yeah. Do you know I had no idea I was a minority?
The final conclusions that I came to were that it's necessary to have an extreme version of conservatism. This is the only way we're going to save Western civilization and the human race, the white race in particular.
He posted Tanya's address and phone number, her husband's contact info, and her son's social media accounts, and urged his fans to troll them, which they did. Anglin threatened to hold a skinhead parade in downtown Whitefish, though he couldn't make it happen. Now the Southern Poverty Law Center is suing Anglin on Tanya's behalf. Supporters have already raised over $100,000 for Anglin's defense and have called his actions lawful First Amendment protected criticism. Anglin and Sherry Spencer declined to be interviewed after repeated requests.
We were afraid for our safety. The Nazis made me feel like this was all my fault, and I was the dirtiest of the dirtiest, ugliest, disgusting human being you could ever imagine, you know?
What he was trying to do was to make her life miserable. He didn't like her because she was Jewish, and so we have filed a lawsuit against him.
In just over 24 hours after their call, Tanya emailed Sherry a listing agreement, a proposed statement for Sherry to make denouncing the alt-right, and news that she might have already found a buyer.
Tanya did speak out about this political issue, right? So does that open her up to Andrea England's political speech, as vile as it might be?
Nothing that anyone has ever claimed Tanya has done, much less what she's actually done, could possibly justify, the vitriol that's been launched against her.
I think people understand that what he did to her is mean, but
Yes.
How is it illegal?
If I had 700 of my friends call you day and night and, say the vilest things, if I attacked your children, I think from a commonsensical point of view, we know that that's way beyond, any kind of free speech line. And that's what he's done. It's not the first time he's done it, but we want to make it the last time he's done it.
SPLC made its name suing hate groups out of existence, winning multi-million-dollar judgments against KKK groups who terrorized locals. Not only is this SPLC's first case of digital harassment, it is their first case against the alt-right. It argues England violated Montana's Anti-Discrimination Act and seeks compensatory and punitive damages.
Before this happened, did you know much about trolls and online harassment?
You hear about the bullying that goes on in high school with the Facebook and all this kind of stuff. I had never seen an attack on a community or an attack on a set of businesses in a community like that.
Tanya counted 700 harassing messages. They sent her Holocaust memes. They called her so much she had to turn off her phone. They filled up her voicemail. They called her husband's law office so much it had to close for a while. They harassed other stores in town. They mailed threats disguised as holiday cards.
Hello, this is Chris. I want to talk to you about a medium-sized resort I own. It's in Montana. Go kill yourself, you fucking Jewish type. All right, thank you.
So did you get a lot like that? Yeah. Where they would try to trick you into listening? Yes. When they started doing that, I had to stop answering my phone completely. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I think I have the wrong number. I was looking for the crematorium.
So the crematorium ones hit me in a really different way. Because they're not talking just about me. They're talking about my history. Yeah. They're reveling in this global tragedy. Right. As if it's no big deal. Mm-hmm. As if they can throw it around. It's one thing to hate somebody. It's another thing to find out that people really believe that the Holocaust was a good thing. Yeah. Yeah. That still takes my breath away, to tell you the truth.
In a prior generation, Andrew England would have burned a cross on Tanya's lawn. In today's world, he's launched a digital storm. What we're trying to do is bring tried and true principles into the digital age.
This is very new. Internet terrorism is very new. If I didn't say this is not okay and make a very, very strong stand against it and just pretend like it didn't happen to me because I was scared, how many other people is Andrew England going to do this to?
Can y'all crank my tunes? Little dragons. Imaginary dragons. I know every word so far. It's is this Imagine Dragons or Little Dragon? Imagine Little Dragon. Why don't they get together? That's like Sheila E. and Sheena Easton. That's a good mashup. I love this so much. Prince. Never heard of him. I'm sorry, who? Everybody wanted to make music that sounded like Prince, I think. Which is why he was always changing. And things kind of got weird and weirder and weirder. And I think that's the thing that I like, is that it got weirder and harder to understand because when you are constantly trying to push the envelope, there's nowhere else to go but fucking weird. And it was great. He's like, I'll tell you what'll freak you guys out. Jehovah's Witness. Didn't see it coming.
Everybody know I've been knocking door down like a Jehovah's Witness. God is my witness.
What was that about a Jehovah's Witness? Did y'all hear that? Y'all can't even hear the song, can you? You know what? Y'all can't hear the song. I might be listening to something completely different. It could be Prince for all you know. The rhymes are good. The melody's good. Also, his name's Logic. It's only logical. This is something my little niece would listen to while she's watching other people play Minecraft on YouTube. Who is this?
Dragon Force.
Another dragon! Pack it up, because we're starting a band called Another Dragons. And it's gonna be huge.
That's Vice News Tonight for Tuesday, May 9th.